Sorry for the delay. I was in a wrestling match with Facebook Live again. 6 or 7 false starts before it actually recording. It's such an awesome tool, but it does have its challenging moments. I think they're just there to test me because I'm sure nobody else has those problems. In fact, I'm pretty well convinced it's operator error. It's all me. You know, we've seen in the news over the last several months, and I've mentioned it just briefly here before, but I really think there are more people who are hoping that what's coming out in the news right now will end soon, and the stuff that's in the news will only be because these people have big names and people are targeting them for their money and their influence and their power, etc. But I'm afraid the reality is there's a cleansing, there's a purging, there's a challenging for people to get real about who they are, about the challenges that they have, the struggles that they have, the addictions that they sweep under the carpet. I'm afraid the carpet has been lifted and all of those little cockroach sins and ideas that have been hidden are running for daylight, running from the daylight to hide somewhere else. We've seen the exposure, specifically with reference at this point to sexual behavior among powerful men who have taken advantage of their position or their leverage, whether in politics, big business, the military. The tailhook scandal was what hit the Navy. It's been a few decades now, but it was a pretty big deal. And yet that behavior doesn't seem to wane. And many people ask the question, well, why is it that men, A, think they can get away with that, or B, feel like it's okay and it's no big deal? And I think the answer to both of those questions is very related, but it's not what you think it is. It's less about the power and influence, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, and I'm not a professional psychologist or psychiatrist, but I once was an addict, and I can see the addicted behavior in what's going on. In fact, let me just share with you real quick the back cover of this book. It says, the power of addiction is a destructive force. The war within will rage until you learn to fight back, taking every thought captive, speaking life passionately, loving yourself and those around you. The strategies outlined in this book have saved lives, restored marriages, deepened relationships with God. I know they will help you too, if you're willing to do the hard work, which will produce positive and lasting results. Through the pages of this book, I'll share some direct details about my own battle with addiction. Do not believe the lie your mind will try to force on you. It will be easy to say, well, that's not my craving. That's not the craving I have, so that's not my problem. Or that solution may work for his addiction, but it won't work for mine. Your enemy and mine are the same. Your slave master and mine have the same origin, the same name, the same agenda. My habits may be different. My cravings may have been different. My consequences may have been different. But the enemy of my soul is the enemy of yours. If it is an addiction, you are the slave, not the master. I promise you, the slave master has only one intention, and that is to destroy you. If you will trust me on this journey through the backwoods of your mind, through the dark caverns of your heart, into the recesses of your soul, I will point you toward and introduce you to the biggest, baddest warrior you have ever met. I recently heard a discussion, I believe it was on talk radio, between two different base ideologies, and one was coming from a religious standpoint, the other from a political standpoint, as far as why did the whole Matt Lauer thing, A, take so long to come to the surface, and then B, how is it that a guy who is so beloved by so many people could do some of the things that were accused? Now, again, at this point, he still stands simply accused. Nothing has been tried and convicted. There are no convictions, and so he's innocent until proven guilty, according to our justice system. But there are a lot of people who have already condemned him. He's already lost his job. His future careers are pretty limited as far as at least the media is concerned. But the impact that his choices and decisions have made have had a far-reaching ripple effect and the number of lives that have been touched, from his own household, his wife and his children, to his immediate office surroundings, the people who worked with him every day, to those in the industry who are now looking and going, well, what role model do we have left? And it's a tough one. I mean, some of the casting couch idea that we've heard about for decades, that if you're not willing to have this kind of relationship with a director like a Harvey Weinstein, then your career is going nowhere. And that has been kind of the urban myth slash legend slash expectation of Hollywood for generations. But we didn't expect it of our morning news anchors or our evening news anchors on public television. It's not what was in our expectation. And so the question between these two was, how do you get that far in life, in success, and still find yourself doing that kind of stuff behind closed doors? Is it just a power struggle? Is it something that you've convinced yourself you have the power and the right and the authority to do this, and so you do it and you don't care about the consequences, or you feel like there will never be any consequences? How do you get to that kind of behavior? And as I was listening, I thought to myself, here's what the addict doesn't do. The addict doesn't ponder the consequences when the craving is drawing them. I mean, think about, and you've seen it in the movies, if you've talked to anybody, I'll give you a good example. Talk to Bobby Hayden Jr. sometime about addiction. Now, this is a man who's been on the top of the world, and he's been on Skid Row. He's lived in a cardboard box because of his addiction to heroin and other narcotics. And he can tell you what it's like to be addicted at that level. That's a deeper level of addiction, in my opinion, than what I experienced, even though my addiction lasted 25 years. That chemical dependency addiction is a little bit different than a pornography addiction, although Dr. Ted Roberts will even tell you that the chemical addiction is true in pornography as well, because of the dopamine, the oxytocin, and the other chemicals released in your body during the process. Now, if you overlay those realities with the behavior of someone like a Matt Lauer or others who had what is inexplicably bad behavior choices that impacted other people's lives. I use Matt Lauer only because his name has been in the news. The reality of his behavior, I am sad to say, is just as common in churches, in public schools, in homes all over America, and in fact, all over the world. I believe it's in the introduction. Let me find this spot. I found this spot first. Every day in homes all over the world, the battle rages. Those homes are mansions on the hills outside of Los Angeles, to the cardboard shelters on the streets of Dallas. They're the huts in the villages of the Congo, palatial estates in the jungles outside of Medellin, Colombia, and the slums of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. These homes are filled with hurting hearts, ravaged by poor choices and believed lies. Too many families have been ripped apart by the deception of selfishness, the want for more, a belief that this world is all mine for the taking. From drugs to money laundering, from pornography to prostitution to gang violence and sex trafficking of minors, the fallen nature of mankind has left a path of destruction for centuries across this globe. It's no understatement to say that addiction is the selfish, pride-filled way that we meet our own needs without regard for the impact that it has on anybody else or the consequences that will eventually catch up with us. Let me say that again. It is no exaggeration to understand that the addiction is a selfish, pride-filled behavior that says, I'm going to get what I want, and I don't care about anybody else and the impact it has on them, and I'm not even considering or concerned about the consequences it may have on my life. Right? That's a big, gigantic deal. Because here's what it means. Whether you're talking about a pastor who's locked himself in his office with a parishioner who's come for counseling, or a pastor who's using, and this has been in the news in the last decade at least more than once, the pastor who uses his power and influence, whether it's for counseling or his authority over the church, to have multiple affairs with women. Or the politician who uses his power and his influence to have multiple affairs and then uses the same power and influence not only to cover it up but to hide it and make it look like it was someone else's fault, someone else's wild accusation. But now it's all over Hollywood. It's all over mainstream. It's everybody, not just the high and mighty political or high and mighty religious leaders. It's anybody who has power and influence is now being exposed for this kind of behavior. And you have to ask the question, did they not understand that they would one day be caught and they would lose all of the money, the influence, the power, the control that they have now? The answer is, an addict doesn't think about that. An addict wants to meet that craving. How many times have you known or heard of the guy who gets pulled over for a DUI or even the mom who gets pulled over for DUI? It was on the news not too long ago. A mom got pulled over for a DUI and she had 2 children in the back seat of the car, one of them covered up in a blanket because she didn't have the right car seat for them. And as she was doing her breathalyzer test, the officer says, well, do you have a stroller or something? Because you're going to go to jail tonight. We need to get whatever the baby might, or whatever the toddler might need out of the car to send home with your mom. And as he opens the trunk, he finds the stroller and the diaper bag and all this stuff. And he's like, that doesn't belong to a toddler. And then he finds an infant in the back seat of the car, covered up in a blanket and buckled into a seatbelt, as drunk mom is driving them home. Hang on. Where did her mother instincts go? What happened to the consequences that would happen to her children if there was an accident? If somebody else just ran a red light and hit them, that baby has 0 survivability skills. But a drunk mom is less concerned about mom or the impact on her children or the influence of her life than she is about getting her fix. In the same scenario, a dad might say, I'm going to put my 5-year-old in the backseat of the car and drive to the liquor store. I'll probably even lock him in the car while I run into the liquor store because, quote, they don't need to be in a place like that. But I'm going to get my liquor and come back in the car and then drive back to the house. And he's probably already a little bit intoxicated. But all of that can happen when you're under the influence of the addiction, because once that slave master has that ball and chain around your neck or around your leg, you go where the slave master tells you to go. Because you're a slave and it's not a discussion. And if that slave is sexuality, or if that slave master is sexuality, or that slave master is pornography, or that slave master is drugs or alcohol or food or control or anger, when that slave master calls you, you do what the slave master says. And based on my own experiences as an addict, my drug of choice, if you will, was pornography and sexual activity. And all of those influences in my life, there were many, many times that I can look back on now and say, in the moment that it was happening, I had no regard for consequences. In the moment that it was happening, I had no real fear for what would happen if I got caught by my wife, or got caught by a friend, or got found out. It didn't matter in that moment. I look back now, having been clean for almost 14 years, and I think to myself, how close did I come to losing it all? How many lives would I have destroyed if I hadn't gotten out of that addiction when I did? And I'm going to tell you right now, as you're watching this, if you're a leader at any level, I don't care if you're a 22-year-old, 23-year-old right out of college and you're getting your first job and you're thinking, you know, that stuff doesn't impact me. I'm not in the media. I'm not in politics. I don't lead a church. I don't have a family yet. None of that stuff even matters to me. I'll drink what I drink. I'll smoke what I smoke. I'll watch what I watch, and it's none of your business. For right now, you're right. But I want you to stop for a moment and just hit the fast forward button. Let's use the Scrooge idea of Christmas future and ask this question: 5 years from now, will those little things be your pet dragons? The alcohol, the pot, the prescription drugs, the pornography, the multiple relationships. Will those still be your pet dragons, or will you be pet food by then, consumed by the dragon? And will those things enhance your relationships or utterly destroy them? Will they enhance your career or utterly destroy it? I'm telling you right now, if you were to fast forward 5, 10, 15 years, and ask yourself the question, if I stay on the path I'm on, what's coming? I'm afraid many of you would find that what's coming is a train. And if you don't get off that tracks, it's going to smash you to nothing. And in that moment, that train won't care if you've risen from your college degree program to being a local attorney or a city judge or a state judge or a Supreme Court justice. When consequences come, when the slave master decides to call in his chit and he owns you, when he decides to play his cards and buy you out, he doesn't care what gets destroyed in the process. So what if you have a house in the Hamptons and a beautiful family and kids in college and grandchildren growing up? None of that matters. When it's time to pay the piper, the consequences are coming. Get help now. Get free of the addiction that you're living with now. Stop hurting the people that you care about because your craving is so strong that you don't have enough sense to say no. Get out of the addiction because you don't own it. It owns you. It may be a pet dragon today, but very soon you will become dragon food. I'm telling you, it will consume you, it will eat you up, and it will destroy everything that you care about. Everything that you care about. 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior was released on October the 14th. We've already sold out of the first bulk order. We reprinted it with new endorsements, with new foreword by Tony Rory, the founder of Men of Honor and Ladies of Honor. Comments in here from fighter pilots, from counselors, from men who have been in Christian ministry for decades. I hope you'll pick up a copy. You can get it on Amazon. You can order it from transforminggrace.tv as well. And if you would like to place a bulk order for a limited time, because we haven't placed our new bulk order yet, for a limited time you can get 100 or more for $5. If you want 1,000 of them to give away, I'll sell them to you for $5. They're $20 on Amazon. Get one. Read through it. There's also a full study course. It will be available. I don't have it in my pocket. It will be available on a USB drive that will have, it's almost 6 hours, maybe 7 hours of video training where I take each of the ideas in the book, each of the main chapters, and give you a different overview with some additional analogies to what's in the book, a little deeper explanation of some of the stuff that's in the book. And if you just watch the videos, you're going to get a really powerful, impactful walkthrough of this issue and how I got free and what I believe God wants everyone to do to get free. But I also know that the questions in the book are pretty challenging. So to watch the videos, to read the book, to go through the questions in the book, that's going to be the most powerful course. And you can get that for your small group, for your church, with a handful of my books and Karen's books. We'll be shooting Karen's videos in the next week or so. And so all of that will be together in one bundle on the USB drive. Those are available for pre-order now. They will be delivered in January. So if you want one, you can pre-order them. Right now I only have 5. So order those as soon as you can. I believe there's a link on the Facebook or on the transforminggrace.tv. So let me know if that's something you want. But I'm telling you right now, it doesn't matter if you're a 20-year-old starting out in life, a 40-year-old father who's working through the details of his life and just building his career, or the CEO of a major company or the pastor of a major church. If you have personal issues in your leadership, it will destroy you. It will destroy your leadership. It will destroy your influence. It will destroy everything that you built, because that dragon is going to come calling. And I don't care if it's a sexual addiction, a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, a control addiction, a money addiction, a power addiction. If you're addicted to something other than God, there will be a price to pay. That's a promise. I hope you'll get help. I am J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.